Hello and welcome to the HealthTech Marketing Show. I'm Adam Turinas. I'm your host for today. I want to give a big thank you to you for listening. Our audience seems to be growing every month. We seem to get more and more listeners. So appreciate that you appreciate what we're doing. And I also want to give a big thank you to our longtime partner in bringing these to market, the wonderful people from HIMSS. We really do appreciate your support. So today is a really fun episode, and I'm going to share some work that we've been doing over the last month or so to develop personas of health tech marketing leaders. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how we did this in a minute. But before we do this, I've got two fantastic colleagues to help me with today's discussion, Lea and Mark. Lea and Mark, introduce yourselves. Tell them a bit about you, what you do with Health Launchpad, and your background. Yeah, go first. Yeah.
So I've recently joined Health Launchpad to work on content strategy and execution, and that has been historically kind of one of my key areas. I started my career in healthcare and health technology right out of college. So it's been almost 30 years, and I've spent a lot of that in content sort of strategy execution before we called it content. And then over the years, I've added a lot of skills in demand gen and brand marketing and a lot of other areas. So I'm excited to be here today to talk about personas, because that's something I've spent a lot of time working on in my career. And I think what Adam put together is really interesting. Mark?
So excited to be here. Thank you for the introduction, Adam and Lea. Mark Erwich, Chief Strategy Officer at Health Launchpad. I joined the company in May, and that comes from a career in healthcare tech. I'm really passionate about healthcare technology, changing every day, reading his talk and what's going on today. The world is changing again. And really passionate about marketing. So great intersection to bring that together at Health Launchpad and working with different clients on a strategy level to support that. Prior to Health Launchpad, worked for companies such as Nuance, Imprivata, and Verado, all companies that are supporting healthcare providers with their technology, and really have been transformational in IT in healthcare. So again, looking forward towards this discussion. Nothing more important than personas. Whatever your role is in marketing, this is something that's critical. Need to understand and need to apply. Sometimes work happens and then goes in towards the closet and never to be looked at again. But no, this is like personas, dynamic, and really have a major impact. So I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, and we did a bit of an experiment here, and we used the wonderful world of AI to help us create personas for the market that we sell to, which is people like you out there who are listening, health tech marketing people. And to do that, we leveraged a series of discussions that happened over the course of 2024. So it's about 25 hours of discussions. And there are basically two types of discussions. So as many of you know, we run a group called the HealthTech Marketing Network, which is, I think it's about 220 now, health tech marketing leaders. So VPs, CMOs, directors of marketing at health tech marketing companies that are part of a community called the HealthTech Marketing Network. And every month we meet twice to talk about a specific topic that they're interested in. And we record those conversations. We don't make them publicly available. We only make them available to the people in the network. But there's so much interesting insight. We usually get about 40 people attend each meeting, and they're all talking about best practice and what they're learning and sharing tips and ideas and what's important. What are some of the things that they're struggling with? They just, for us, it's just a wonderful opportunity to learn from the community. And then we also did a series of one-on-one interviews with people in our community, so health tech marketing leaders, to understand what was going to be important to them in 2025 and what are their priorities. And what we then did was we took all of those, the recordings, the transcripts of all of those meetings, and we used an AI tool called Notebook LM to analyze it. So Notebook LM is a Google product. It's free. And the difference between Notebook LM and the other generative AI tools out there is it limits the analysis that it does to the source files that you put into it. So, if we were to have used ChatGPT or Claude AI for this, we wouldn't be sure that it wasn't just analyzing beyond the information that we put in. And we wanted to make sure that we sort of put a box around what we were analyzing. And Notebook LM does that. And then what we did was we used Notebook LM to ask it a series of questions to help us create personas. And so the output of this are 4 personas that we're going to dive into. And I think it's going to be really fun for you to listen to this and then to read more about it, because you're going to want to say, well, where do I fit in? And, one of the reasons for Mark and Lea being on is that both of them have been in the seat. They're very experienced HealthTech marketing leaders, and I'm really keen to hear where they see themselves. So I'm going to tell you what the 4 personas are, just the names of them, and then Lea and Mark are going to read you out a little bit of a story about each one. So the first one is called the Data Maven. The second one is called the ABM Strategist. Then there's the Customer Whisperer. And then the last one is called the Agile Innovator. So Lea, tell us about the Data Maven.
Yeah. So the Data Maven. Sarah sits at her desk with multiple monitors displaying dashboards from Salesforce, HubSpot, and Power BI. Her morning ritual involves diving deep into yesterday's marketing performance metrics, not just skimming the surface with basic engagement numbers, but analyzing the true impact on the sales pipeline. As a marketing leader at a growing health tech company, she's built her reputation on transforming marketing from a cost center to a revenue driver. MQLs alone don't tell the whole story, she often reminds her team during their weekly metrics review. She's passionate about sophisticated attribution modeling, having spent the last year developing a custom framework that tracks marketing's influence from first touch to closed deal. Her background in marketing operations gives her an edge in understanding the technical complexities of marketing analytics, and she's not afraid to challenge conventional wisdom when the data suggests a different approach. Recently, she championed a shift from quantity-based to quality-based metrics, despite initial pushback from stakeholders. Her presentation showing how high-touch marketing activities led to larger deal sizes and faster close rates ultimately won over even the most skeptical executives. Now she's exploring predictive analytics to better forecast marketing's impact on future revenue.
Seems pretty clear to me what Sarah's like. I've met a lot of Sarahs, and I love them dearly. Yes. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about Michael, the ABM strategist.
Michael leans back at his chair, studying the account engagement heat map on his second monitor while he's on a call with his sales counterpart. As a firm believer in account-based marketing, he transformed his company's approach from casting a wide net to precision targeting of high-value healthcare organizations. His desk write-up is covered with notes from yesterday's sales and marketing alignment workshop, where he introduced new ways to personalize outreach for different stakeholders within target accounts. We need to think about the entire buying committee, he frequently emphasizes in strategy meetings. It's not just about reaching the CTO. We need to engage the CMIO, the CFO, and clinical leaders who influence the decision. His team leverages intent data and account-based analytics platforms to identify and prioritize accounts showing active interest in their solutions. Despite the complexities of implementing ABM in healthcare space, Michael thrives on the challenge. He is currently piloting a new approach that combines traditional ABM tactics with healthcare-specific insights, ensuring their targeting takes into account the unique nuances of health system purchasing dynamics.
Always love an ABM type of guy. So, the Customer Whisperer. Tell us about Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer's office walls are covered with journey maps and persona insights gathered from countless customer interviews and focus groups. As a marketing leader who believes in the power of deep customer understanding, she's known for going beyond surface level demographics to uncover the real motivations and challenges driving healthcare technology purchases. We're not just selling software, she often says. We're helping healthcare organizations transform patient care. Her content strategy reflects this philosophy, focusing on educational content that addresses specific pain points for different roles within healthcare organizations. She's built a robust thought leadership program that positions her company as a trusted advisor in the healthcare technology space. Her latest initiative involves creating personalized content journeys for different buyer personas based on insights gathered from customer advisory boards and win-loss analysis. She's particularly proud of a recent campaign that resonated strongly with C-suite executives by addressing their strategic challenges rather than just technical features.
Very, very good. Yeah, very, very interested in Jennifer and her customer insights. So the last one. So let's tell us about Alex, the Agile Innovator.
Alex thrives in the fast-paced world of health tech marketing, where limited resources meet ambitious goals. Leading marketing for a growing health tech company, they've become known for their ability to achieve outsized results through creative resource allocation and innovative approaches. We may not have the biggest budget, they often say, but we can be smarter about how we use what we have. Their marketing tech stack is carefully curated, focusing on tools that deliver maximum impact for minimum investment. They're not afraid to pilot new technologies or approaches, recently launching a successful ABM program despite having a lean team. Alex's strength lies in their ability to build strong relationships across the organization and with external partners. They've created a network of industry experts and thought leaders who contribute to their content program, effectively extending their team's capabilities without expanding headcount. Their continuous learning mindset keeps them at the forefront of industry trends, always ready to adapt their strategy as the health tech landscape evolves.
That's great. Yeah, I think in our network, there's a lot of Alexes, a lot of one man bands, one person armies. So, all right, I've been dying to ask you this, Lea, then Mark. Which persona or personas do you associate with the most? Which ones do you think's you?
Well, I would definitely say the customer focused. I think because I started. Yeah, the customer whisperer, right? I started my career in a healthcare nonprofit that served cancer patients and their families. And so that obviously was always about people and caring for people, and everything we do is about the people here. And I think that sort of set me on a path of being kind of focused on the customer and who they are and what their journey looks like, and how we can support them. But obviously I've had to be a one-person band, Agile Innovator. So I've definitely learned that persona, right, added to my skills. I'd like to think that you're always trying to be a little bit more of each of the, right? If you lean more heavily towards one, that you're trying to add some of those other skills over time, right? And balance yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, the ideal marketer is somebody, I think, who's sort of balanced between 2 or 3 of these at least.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. And you know what? If you'd asked me which ones do you think I am, I would have said that. So it's interesting. Good. Glad sorry, I feel I know you enough that I would have got that right. Mark, how about you?
So my first job was at Apple. And at that time, it was a mix of B2B and B2C, obviously. And it still is in a way. But so what I really appreciated was this balance between creative and analytical. As my job evolved and as I shifted towards different companies and got also higher on the ladder, obviously less creative part is involved. But I think I learned a tremendous amount during my time at Nuance on the data side, and that was really part of the growth of the company. We had an excellent marketing leader, Peter Mahoney, and we learned a lot from him with regards towards every business unit, how to grow and what are the different data points to measure and how to track that. I think over time I've evolved from more the Agile Innovator towards the Data Maven towards the ABM Strategist, but you can't do one without the other. Like ABM
Right.
without data or without innovation is simply not going to happen. So I think we always need to be on the forefront of technology and leverage technology to be sure to help us being more effective. Because whatever company you work with, you have limited resources.
It's very interesting hearing you both talk about the evolutions of your career and how you've kind of evolved from one to another, but also how no one's going to be one, purely only one persona. I mean, very few people are. Most people are going to be a bit mix of everything. It's almost like a Myers-Briggs.
That's the same thing I was thinking. I was like, it's like you're not an INFP anymore. You're
yeah. We should come up with. We'll have to come up with a Myers-Briggs for that. that would be really, really cool. You guys know a lot of people in the community. I mean, you're both very active in Sway Health. You've both taken part in the HealthTech Marketing Network, and you've been in many roles and worked with a lot of people. What do you think the makeup is? Are there more innovators out there? Are there more ABM strategists? What's your perspective on that?
I think there's a lot of peers that are trying to do more with less. But as soon as it gets towards technology, frequently they get overwhelmed because it's not necessarily the way that their brains are wired. So I think there's an opportunity there. With regards towards ABM, I was surprised, was it 2 weeks ago, when we shared research on the network in terms of the state of ABM implementation, where they are, and comparing that towards the overall industry. And it feels like we are, or healthcare technology is somewhat behind, whereas one could argue healthcare technology is actually one of the greatest industries to apply ABM because the market is so transparent and you have so much data available actually to be successful here. So very interesting how it's made up. I think there's also a lot of changes currently happening in the C-suite. Was it marketing leaders that are looking for different jobs, or changes in the organization where you have a chief revenue officer? So that's also transforming, I think, a little bit of what's going on, which is somewhat concerning, but we can talk about that separately.
Yeah, I sort of feel like people naturally lean a little bit towards being a little more on the maybe creative content brand persona side, right? That customer whisperer person or an analytics person. You sort of tend to lean
one or the other, right? Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah.
And now we've sort of created an environment where people are being pushed towards being agile innovators or more ABM focused, and they're having to take whatever their skill set is, right, and kind of become more of one or the other of those. Whereas you sort of naturally tend to either be kind of creative or kind of analytical.
Right.
And I think that's sort of like what Mark's saying, right? The industry's changing a little bit. Healthcare does really naturally fit well with ABM.
Yeah.
But everyone's really challenged by these budget issues that are forcing people to be much more agile and innovate more and look at new technology. And that doesn't always come naturally, right? I mean, your inclination would be like, give me more resources. You have to learn how to be agile like that.
I think the ABM strategists in particular, I mean, we've been very involved in this over the last 5 years with Health Launchpad. And, about 4 years ago, I ran a series of webinars with HIMSS on ABM. And it's heavily attended. I think we had like 2,000 registrants over the course of it. And that was because there was a real hunger to get to understand it. But actually, I was trying to put together a panel of like experienced ABM people, and I couldn't find them. I mean, I didn't know Mark then, but you know, and I think that we benchmarked where ABM was about a year ago, and it was like less than 20%, I think, were sort of an experience of having had more than 2 or 3 years experience of really doing it, but way less, maybe less than 10%. I think that's now evolving. I think that it's now, there are more people that have some experience of it. But I do agree with you. I think people bifurcate. It's probably like, what were you good at school at? If you're really good at English, you're probably going to be more the customer whisperer. Right. You're going to be more focused on content. If you're really good at math and science, you're probably going to be more on the analytical side. I'm probably, you know, I probably lean more towards the analytical side. That's why I'm so passionate about ABM. And then I do write a lot too. So it's very interesting. You know, in your experience, do you think marketing leaders can be too focused on, you know, being one type of persona, maybe at their own expense? What do you think about that? Maybe Lea, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I kind of do. I mean, I think that's why I was sort of saying, like, you should be spending your career trying to become more of those other things, because you can sort of lose sight of one side or the other if you're a little too focused on the creative piece. And I notice when, you know, even when you're talking to other marketers or you're interviewing for jobs or you're interviewing people to work for you, right? You can see sometimes people who are very heavily one or the other. And I'm less inclined to necessarily hire someone who seems way too heavily one or the other, because you can't be so focused on creative that you're not thinking about impact and, you know, measurement and all those things. But you can't be so focused on measurement that, you know, often people will say to me, oh, well, brand stuff is too vague. You can't be so focused on measurement that you're not willing to think about big picture either, right? It takes a blend, I think, of all those qualities to make sure you have the right balance and the right approach, and that you don't pigeonhole yourself or lock yourself into one thing because you think, well, this is too, I can't measure this, is too nebulous, or, you know, those kinds of things, which I think hurts marketing efforts overall.
100% agree with Lea. I think it always needs to be a balance. I think as younger people think about their career and how to balance it, they may learn about the other elements to really become well-rounded and making sure that they've addressed the various things. I think in any position, data is important, but I think it's also the ability to connect the dots, right? And I think it's not so much staring at the reports, but looking towards, hey, what's the impact and what's the story behind it? In the end, the more technical person who is able to get everything connected and build excellent reports is not necessarily the same person as the person who understands the data, can tell a story about that for a board or for C-level. Yeah. And so that's another element, like the Data Maven concept is really a combination of two things that need to work together in order to be super valuable. And then on the customer whisperer, I think in the persona as the way that Lea read it, talking about customer interviews and focus groups and all of that, that's all interesting, but like pick up the phone and talk to a customer, like for real. What is their story? What is their impact? And making sure that you're able to translate that.
Yeah, I think this is how I know I'm that person, is I still have customers from jobs going back the last 15 years who I still talk to.
I mean, I'm kind of curious, like if you were to put together like your dream team marketing team, how would you, you know, what would you have, like one of each? How would you put your team together? Mark first, then Lea.
Yeah, I think you'll be looking towards a mix, and you also want to be careful, right? Like the Agile Innovator, it's great, but with the 18,000 different marketing technology tools that are out there, and new ones coming on the market every day. AI is only accelerating that. You don't want somebody who's like looking at stuff every day and gets super excited about it and forgets to run the business. So I think it's all a bit of a balance. You don't want somebody who's like super on one level or super on another level, but forget about the rest. It needs to be a balanced approach.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I think the best team I ever sort of was a part of was a head of marketing who's much more of an analytical person. And then me being more of that sort of creative content, customer focused person. And then we had a couple people below us who sort of covered the spectrum a little bit of different things, a couple people who really were innovative and interested in that, even though it wasn't maybe their core thing, right? But you could task them with going to find some new solution and they'd get really excited about it. But I think if your leadership is a good balance between sort of that creative customer focused person and a really great data person, whichever top or whoever's sort of the top or next down, that's a great blend for the leadership of a team if they work well together.
Yes.
And in our experience, I mean, I think one year we hit all of our goals by like June, and we had to completely go back and change.
Wow.
Once we were in a groove and we'd figured out that balance between the creative piece and the right way to talk to customers and prospects, and we were tracking the data, we had all the right dashboards. I mean, we just nailed that thing. It was,
it's such an
it's like, you're like, wow.
I mean, that's such an interesting lesson, right? Which is, and it kind of goes back to a point that both of you are making, which is the balance is critical, right? So the market is moving towards sort of the notion of pipeline growth and being hyper analytical and measuring things. And, we, as anybody knows anything about us, we're a bit obsessive about that. But I think as a company, what we've also come to realize is messaging and the quality of the content is as important, because otherwise you're just funneling sort of empty calorie pixels that just don't, you can measure them, but they're not making any impact. So I do think this notion of kind of having a diversity of skills, but the leader has to recognize the value and recognize that people with the different personas also have different work styles as well, and need to be treated very differently. Let's just shift gear. I'm kind of curious. It's like this. We did this exercise, kind of almost for fun, right? I mean, it was sort of like, hey, well, this would be a really cool thing to do, right? You can do this with Notebook LM. And I also thought, as we think about marketing ourselves, it was an important exercise, and it's been very helpful. We're actively using this. But, think about, as for people listening out there, how can they apply this kind of use of the technology in the way that they do, in their own marketing strategy? Lea, then Mark, or whoever wants to take that one first.
I'm like I shared at the beginning. I'm super excited about this concept of personas, building it, having consensus around it, talk about it, and then implementing it. Right. This is the type of exercise that some organizations outsource, some organizations do it in-house, but particularly when it's outsourced, it may end up in the shelf, people are not using it. But use it and test it. Test your messaging against it. Start building like these mini journeys of those personas, and then start evaluating, hey, does this actually map towards the interest that's expressed in towards the persona? I think there's also, you mentioned Notebook LM, which is a great tool, but then there's also AI tools that have avatars. You can actually upload the extraction that you got from a Notebook LM in towards an avatar, and you can query the avatar. So you can actually.
Really?
Yeah. So you have the ability. you have the ability now to ask, hey, if for this person, for Alex, how would he respond towards this ad, for instance? So I think that's another way to make it more efficient and test the different messaging. And
I love that idea. We're going to do that.
I know,
yeah, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, and I think, like what Mark was saying before, there's so much information out there about the different personas in healthcare specifically. I mean, if you think about, say, the role of the CIO, if you belong to groups like, Chime and HIMSS and maybe the Academy or something like that, you are getting massive amounts of information every 3 months, every 6 months, right? About what their priorities are, what their challenges are. You're getting these sort of little case studies that are telling you about what they're doing in their organizations. It's kind of overwhelming. I mean, really, if you're, especially for some of the key C-suite personas like CIOs or chief, experience officers and CFOs, to be able to take that every 6 months and update using those AI tools to constantly be improving and refining and getting sort of the latest, greatest stuff about what those personas are experiencing in their jobs. I mean, that's an amazing thing to be able to put that into something like Notebook LM.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can scrape articles and interviews.
Yeah. I mean, you can really create
LinkedIn profiles, all sorts of
beyond anything I think any of us used to create in PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it just takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's two really, really good ideas there. And just actually in terms of how long it took to do it, like if we'd done this just by sort of listening to the, going back, listening and taking notes, 20 something, let's call it 20 hours of recordings. Yeah. It's like you got to listen 20 hours. You've got to then write the notes, process the notes. That's 30 hours of work right there, just to do that. And then create the personas and then, really craft them. Probably another 10 to 20 hours, something like that. So it's, this is a 40 to fit. So it's one work week at least to do this. And we just never would have done it. I think it took 2, maybe 3 hours to do this using, and we did it using a combination of Notebook LM to do the analysis, Claude to write the narratives. And then I think I used, I can't remember which image generator I used. I'm still struggling with those a bit, actually, to create the visual sort of depictions of them, the images of them that you'll be able to see on the blog post, which there's a link to that down in the show notes. Yeah.
Well, and think about if you added into that things like 2 or 3 analyst reports on your personas or your sort of key industry, and then you added in some HIMSS surveys and some stuff from the Academy, and the most wired reports from Chime or something. I mean, that's another 10 or 20 hours of reading and analyzing all those reports and trying to
absolutely
it, right? I mean, you're looking at a whole nother half a week or week just trying to get all that external data too, if you were doing one where you had a lot of access to that sort of thing.
Well, also, I mean, Mark at the outset of this talked about the importance of being a dynamic process, and I think this is the thing with these tools is that you can make it. To your point, there's a great report that comes out about the audience and a new set of class reports, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. You can just go in and upload it and just refresh them, and it doesn't take long to do it. It's remarkable how well it works. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and it's been great, sort of getting to learn a bit more about you both and to see the way that you see yourselves. I think I would have got. I think if you'd asked me at the outset which personas do you think we would have been, I probably would have got. I would have got pretty close, but it's always really good to see yourself. I'm not actually sure which one I am. I think I'm a combination. I might be a combination of all 4.
Well, I don't know. That's the best marketers, right? The best marketers are the ones who are a combination of multiples of these.
Well, Thank you again. And I also want to give a big thank you to you for listening. If you want to subscribe to this, we're on all the podcast applications. Spotify's the easiest one, Apple, of course, as well. And we're also on YouTube, so you can watch us having this conversation. Most importantly, down below, there's a blog post link in the show notes, so you can actually read the personas in more detail, a bit about the tools and how we went about doing this, and you'll see some really nice images that AI generated of these. So thank you again, Lea and Mark. Really appreciate your insights. It's been a really fun chat. And with that, I will bid all our listeners a good afternoon or a good morning or whatever stage of day it is. We wish you adieu.
Thank you.